Yes! Yes, friend! Woo! Boy, do I enjoy being at the tavern. And as many of you saw before, Iron and Ale is a perfect way to celebrate your time in the tavern, drinking with friends, and enjoying a bit of competition. But did you know that round 1 is past, and now we're at the expansion? King of the Keg. It's a whole new way to enjoy Iron and Ale with new challenges, new Dwarven Lords, and new cards called Ancient Relics. Well, instead of talking about it, let's just take a look at it, shall we? So Iron and Ale King of the Keg comes with a bunch of new cards that really enhance Iron and Ale overall. You're going to get 15 Ancient Relic cards, 15 Mead Hall cards, 10 Monster cards, 5 Dwarven Lords, 2 blank Mead Hall cards, and the King's card. So, to kick it off, let's talk about the King's card. The King's card is a special card that allows you to essentially be the king of the keg. It allows you to use one of these powers once per round, as long as you're still the king. Now, there are ways to become the king, such as using an Ancient Relic card, defeating the Mountain King, or defeating the dragon, but the King's card allows you one of 3 different powers. You have King's Tax, which allows you to force a Dwarven Lord to give you 2 of their resource cards. You have King's Wrath, which forces a Dwarven Lord to drink 3, or the King's Greed. You choose a Dwarven Lord to complete in a Mead Hall challenge instead of you. This is a really powerful card to have. The new Dwarven Lords are actually pretty awesome. I'll go over each of them. You're going to get 5 of them. First is Alora Stoneshake. She's basically a fighter. Her ability allows you to drink 2 and redo a Mead Hall challenge that you lost. So that's pretty powerful. You also have Arjack Foehammer. He's kind of a well-rounded kind of guy. You can discard 1 resource card. Before drawing from the mountain deck, you can name a non-boss monster. If you draw it, you immediately defeat it. So he's pretty powerful as well. You also have Thruiger, the Elven Lord. He's not even a Dwarf Lord. He kind of snuck his way into the tavern here. You can pay 1 resource card, and then you have to sing a Dwarven Lord's name beautifully. If you do so, then they must be the next person to take a Mead Hall challenge. So, kind of some trickery there. You have Honeybeard Whiskey Chest. Now, this is probably my favorite name in existence for a dwarf. He's basically the Relic Master. He gets to start the game with one of the Ancient Relics. And finally, you have Thorgrim Fire Spinner. He basically allows you to roll a die. On a 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have to drink, but on a 5 or 6, you get +2 to your attack roll when in the fighting phase. Those are all of the new Dwarven Lords. Now let's take a look at the new cards added to the game called the Ancient Relics. Now these Ancient Relics can do a lot of different things. For instance, this Ancient Relic is the Lucky Amulet, and as long as you have it, you get to roll the combat die twice whenever you're fighting and keep the higher of the 2. You also have some Dwarf Swap Potions which allow you to swap places with another Dwarven Lord. You've got the Legendary Pickaxe, which allows you to draw cards from the mountain decks, which makes sense because you're using a pickaxe so you get more stuff. As I mentioned earlier, there are cards like the King's Crown, which allows you to take the King's card immediately and become King of the Keg. Then you get all those sweet powers. You have things like the King's Hammer, which allows you to automatically defeat a non-boss monster encounter from the mountain deck. Now you'll notice some of these will say discard. When you discard them, they're gone. But some of the Ancient Relics actually stay with you for the entirety of the game. Now there's a few more Ancient Relics in here. I don't want to show them all off because I want to leave a little bit of air of surprise for when you go and get the game on your own. Now, since this is King of the Keg, it wouldn't be appropriate if there weren't any challenges that focus on the king. First of all, we've got one of my favorites called Homage to the King. This allows each Dwarven Lord to flick the king's forehead. The hardest flick wins, and the king decides the winner. The loser drinks. You've also got things like Dragon's Breath, which is another favorite of mine. Burp in a Dwarven Lord's face. That Dwarven Lord has to guess the last thing you ate. Now, some of these are a little more physical than the last ones, because in the original Iron and Ale, you have to do things like a burping contest or a push-up contest. But this is one that, you know, I would play with lightly. It's called Dwarven Torch. You basically have to take a Dwarven Lord and they take another person's arm and try to twist the skin to make it hot. And you lose if you flinch or make a sound. So, I don't know, those are kind of erring on a little dangerous. And then, you know, you've got some other things like King's Curse, which allows Dwarven Lords to take turns cursing the king. Whoever has the worst curse wins. You've got Impersonate a King, do your best impersonation of the king. And then, of course, you've got a lot more challenges in here that I'm not going to reveal, so that way you are curious about it. The monsters that are added to the game are things like Dwarf Spirits. You can't use Dwarven abilities on your next turn if you lose. Mug Mimics, which are hilarious because they're, well, mimics of mugs. And then even some elves show up to fight. And then, finally, one of the best things about this expansion, they add in 2 cards that allow you to make your own challenges, which are fantastic. I can't wait to bust these out and really get the other Dwarven Lords going for their gold, so to speak. But as far as what's in the new expansion, King of the Keg, there you have it. Well, there you have it. A little bit of Iron and Ale, King of the Keg. Oh, you know what? Give me a moment. Whew, that's a lot better. That thing is super hot. Iron and Ale, King of the Keg is a great way to enjoy Iron and Ale. The addition of the relic cards makes it a whole lot of fun because there's a lot of replayability in the fact that the relic cards can actually have you switch lords. They can do a lot of different things, and there's a lot of randomness that comes into play, even more so than what's already in the deck. The new monsters are terrifying. The new challenges are awesome, and the ability to make your own Dwarven challenge is probably my favorite part of this game. I know a lot of players were actually doing that before they even offered the cards, but the fact that Table Forged offered those as an option makes it fantastic. If you have a chance to pick up King of the Keg, do so. If you're a fan of Iron and Ale, this is only going to take your game further. So, with that being said, I've got a little bit more to drink and a lot more challenges to complete. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, guys, happy drinking safely gaming.